Hello everybody, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to use MindStudio in depth, and I'm going to show you how to create complex agents that will help you in your class projects. Now, when I first started doing MindStudio, I looked at a blank canvas and I thought, holy crap, I'm not going to be able to do any of this stuff. It's all so new, it's all so different, but that's okay. I took it step by step, and now I'm able to create something like this. Now this is a huge demonstration model here that I'll be going in depth on, and don't feel overwhelmed. I'll be breaking this down step by step, and we'll look at how each process works. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to create your own agent. So to start off simple, we're going to go here to our query Data.flow. And we're going to learn how to do our first bot in MindStudio. So, a very simple bot. It asks the user what the date is. It takes that information. It queries a database where it pulls the assignments that are due. And it'll tell you what are the next 3 assignments that are due. So going through step by step, this is a user input right here. Your user inputs can be found here on this Explorer tab. To create a new one, you press the plus button and create new. And you can fill this out with whatever you want. This will just gather user input data that can be used later on in the agent. Going back to our query Data.flow. So once we have the date given by the user, we have to select the data source where it's coming from, or where to do RAG. So this box right here will allow us to perform RAG on a database. So my database, I have 2 set up right now in this demonstration. The one that this is querying is called due next, and it just has one document in it that goes over the class schedule, has assignment due dates and all that. So you put in the date and say what are the next 3 assignments that are due. It'll do RAG, it'll pull out chunks, and then we're going to output this as a due variable. So we can't just let it do the query and then call it good. We're going to have to save that somewhere, and we're going to save that as the variable due. So this text generator can then pull from that information. So this is going to Claude 3.5 Haiku. We're going to say today's date is given by the user. Based on the results of our query, what are the next 3 assignments that are due? Exclude assignments that are less than the due date given by the user. This part's important to include in here just to ensure that you get the proper results. And as you see here, it's going to display to the user, and it's going to end the function. This is a very simple bot. Now moving on to logic. So right here, this is an expanded portion of our query bot. So we're going to ask the user the date, and we're also going to include a question. So what this does is this logic block here, if the question is asking about an assignment, it's going to take us down this route here, which is just the exact same as our query data. But this one has an added functionality of if the question is asking about clarification on an in-class topic, then it will do a search on our other database, which I called class notes, which is just a PDF version of our live class notes. So once we have this logic block in, it will be able to use logic to determine what the user wants based off the question variable here. So this way we can get 2 different outputs. And again, we're going to save this the results as a notes variable. So when we generate text here, we can say the user is asking this question. Can you help me understand this? Please use the results from this rag retrieval as your primary source, and then it'll end. Now you can have one end block, have two end blocks, it really doesn't matter. The functionality is going to be the same, but for this example I decided to use two end blocks. Later on I'll be showing an example where I just use one. Moving on to the menu functionality. The menu block is just like the logic block, except the user gets to decide where it goes. So instead of the logic block deciding where to send the agent, depending on what the user says, the user just gets to choose what happens. So for this example, I have do nothing and say welcome to class. So once we load this bot up, we're going to get this message here, and it's either going to send us here to say welcome to class, or it's just going to end it. And as you see here, I just use one terminator block or end block, and it has the same functionality as if I'd used two. So logic, difference between logic and menu is logic will determine what the user wants based off user inputs. Menu, the user just gets to decide what happens next. Moving on to scraping a URL. This block here allows us to input a website and have that model be scraped, meaning the text on the website will be put into a file or a database, and it will be sent to whatever you send it to. For in this case, I'm going to be generating text off of it. So we have the website here, which is a website that shows the current leaderboards for large language models, and we're going to save these results as best model. So what this text generation block does is it takes that variable best model, so the results from the website, and it simplifies this and tells us what the best models are. Now in this case, I have this output saved as a variable, model result, and it's going to be sent to this block here where it tells us the result. Now the reason I did this is because I am going to send this result to another workflow, which I will talk about later. So you have two options for displaying text. You can either save it to a variable or just display it to the user. If you want to be able to use the results from this block in another block, you're going to have to be sure to save it as a variable. Okay, now we're moving into the Google portion of the functionality within MindStudio. For this section, you will need to enter your Gmail account. For this flow specifically, you don't need it, but for the email and updating Google Docs, you will need to give MindStudio access to your email and your Google Drive. So going over this web search function, we take a question from the user, we send that question to the search query, which is going to do a Google search based off our question, and it's going to save the search results as search result. Now in this text generation prompt, we're going to give Claude what our question was, and we're going to give the Google result, and we're going to ask it to summarize it for us. Moving on to send email. You will need to link your Google account for this one to work, because this one, as you can see here, it's linked to my account right here. This is where it's going to send the emails from. You can send the emails to wherever you want. In this case, I'm just using a test email, and I'll show you how this works right now. So this model, or this agent I should say, will take the name of the user and the question, and it will generate an email for us to send it. Right now, the email is very simple. It's really just taking the question and expanding on it, and then sending it to this email. Here's the subject line. You can you can put whatever you want in this content section here, but I just want it to send whatever Claude generates for me. So we take the name and the question, generates an email, and then it sends it. There's also an option to create a draft email and not send it. That way you can review the email before it gets sent out, but in this example, I'm just using the send email to simplify our workflow. Moving on to the update document section, you will need to have your Google account linked, and you will have to choose the document in your Google Drive that you want to use. The document I'm using in this demonstration is called In-Class Demo, and I have this pulled up here. Right now, the document is completely blank, but this bot will be able to edit this document, and it will be able to eventually pull from that document as well. But let's go over this update part. So this input section, all agents are pretty much going to start with user input. So in this one, we're going to give it our name, the date, and the question we're asking. It's going to take that info and just make a log update. If you put these two asterisks next to each other, it will bold the output. So it's going to give us log update, the date we put in, user, our name, question asked, and whatever we asked. Very simple, and if we run this, it will give us output here, and I'll demonstrate how that works later in the video. Moving on to the pull document workflow, we will be able to essentially do the exact same thing, except we're only going to give it our question, and then this time it's going to pull data from this spreadsheet or this document here. So instead of taking things in, it's going to read what's there and give us an output. And again, we're going to save this as our output variable. I call it log doc. So we can ask Claude our question and the results from our document and ask it to summarize it. And this may seem simple and useless right now, but remember, we're going to be putting all these together to create something that's very, very useful and that will be very applicable to your class projects. Okay, moving on to this Jump workflow. This is our simplest workflow demonstration right here because we're not actually doing anything in this workflow. This jump feature allows us to jump to a separate workflow. So if I ran this agent right here, it's going to start, and then it's going to jump to Logic.flow, which is this one right here. And then it'll go through each one of these steps individually. So Jump is very useful for simplifying your workflows. Ideally, in your final class project, you're going to be using Jump in here because this is way too complicated. I only put this here just so we can get a visual of what's going on with our agents. But you would be wanting to use more of these Jump features to make your workflow simpler and to make it easier to use. Now moving on to the Run.flow. This one is kind of similar to Jump, but there's a little key difference here. So Run, it's going to run an entire workflow in this block. So right now I have this here. Actually, it's not set. I'll set it right now. Let's have this set to scrape URL. We're going to have it run once. And you're going to have to modify whatever workflow you're asking it to run. You're going to have to do a little bit of modification in order for this to work. But for this demonstration here, we're going to input our question, and it's going to send this question to our scrape URL. So if we go back here, it's going to run this entire workflow right here. So this whole block right here, on this screen it just looks like one block, but we know that in reality it's actually doing all of these steps. Now, the modifications you're going to need to make to the document or the workflow that you're running to, you're going to have to modify the end block for sure. So in this end block, I'm telling it to output the model result. So if you remember, our URL scraping is asking this website what the best model is, and then we're going to summarize the results. I have this saved as model result. So this result here, whatever Claude gives us, is going to be sent over to the run document. And then we're going to do a Google search. I've described this functionality earlier. So we're going to do a web scraping here, we're going to do a Google search here, and we're going to combine the results here. So we're going to ask Claude what the user's question was. We're going to give the basic Google search, and we're going to give the specific website. This way we get broad results and a more focused website. This way we can summarize everything, and we can get a more holistic picture of what's really going on, what really is the best model out there. So this will give us an accurate picture of what the current best models are. And then this end block is just normal. Moving on to the most complicated part of MindStudio, which is custom functions. Custom functions are very powerful. You can do a lot of things with custom functions. You can do pretty much anything with custom functions, really. Only problem is you have to be able to code it yourself. Now, I have very, very limited coding experience, and I'm sure everyone in the class here is in the same boat as me, little to none. If you have a lot of coding experience, then this is great. You're going to be able to utilize this function, and you can be able to get a lot out of MindStudio. Now, MindStudio has some things that help out. So just going over this workflow right here, this is our basic pulling our next 3 assignments that are due. So just like in our very first example, it's the exact same thing, but we're adding on this custom function. Now, to view the custom function, you're going to want to go here to the Explorer tab under Functions, and I've called mine DayCalc. Now, what this code does here is it will pull the assignment due date and the date that you gave the model, and it will calculate how many days you have left to finish an assignment. So instead of just telling us when an assignment's due, it's going to tell us how long we have left to do it. Now, in my mind, this was a very simple thing to ask, but it took me 3.5 hours to get this code to work. And just some tips to get custom functions working. There's this generate button down here. If you click this button, you can tell MindStudio what you want the code to do, and it'll give you a rough outline of how it will work. Now, it didn't work for me right out of the box. Every time I've tried it, it's never worked right out of the box. I've always had to adjust it. And I think that's going to be the same for you. If you try this right now, just using the generate, maybe if it's a simple task with very, simple inputs, maybe it'll work right out of the box. But in my case, it didn't. So I took the code it gave me, I put it into ChatGPT. There's these help documents here. There's more on their website. I put that into ChatGPT, and I found some working examples online. Threw that in to ChatGPT and said, this is how codes run normally. Take what you've learned and fix my code. And after a couple of tries, ChatGPT was able to fix my code to make it work. And now we have this very cool functionality that'll tell you how many days left until an assignment is due. So there's two parts to this function here. There's this code section where you're actually going to be doing the calculations, the functions, the inputs, the outputs. And then there's this configuration page, which will allow you to design this tab here. And it'll allow you to input the variables you want. Now this is all very, very complicated, and it's probably too much for most people in this class, me included. But if you're able to utilize your tools that you know, ChatGPT, if you're able to give it the correct resources, you'll be able to pull something valuable out of this feature. Okay, so now we have gone through every single little section here. Now I'm going to show you how all of these puzzle pieces fit together. So here in the Everything flow, we can zoom in and we can scroll around. It's going to start the bot. We're going to input our name, our date, and our question. That's going to be sent to this logic block. And if we're asking about our assignments that are due, it's going to send us down this path here. If we ask it about clarification on a topic, it's going to send us down this path. If we ask about previous agent use, which I'll go over in a little bit, but essentially everything you do in this bot will be saved to this document. So if you want to ask about your previous usage, it will send you up to here, this jump functionality, which is pull document. And if you ask it about the best models, it's going to do this run function here, which is just this whole thing here. So it's going to do a Google search, and it's going to scrape the web, and it's going to put everything together nicely into one response, and it's going to save it to our document. So at the very end, in this demonstration, I've just included this update Google Doc. So every interaction you have with it, it will be saved here. So you can save the outputs, you can keep the outputs, you can reference them later, and you can have the agent reference them as well. So going to this first path here that I talked about, this is just our query data plus the custom function. So we're gonna get our assignments that are due. It's gonna tell us how many days we have left to do them. It's gonna display it, it's gonna save it, and it's going to end. Now this block here, I kind of have a nested logic function. So it's gonna, if we want to know more about class topics, it'll pull from our live class notes, and it'll tell us all about it. And then if that's not enough, if we still need more help, we can choose to search the web, or we can end it, which will save our output. And if we choose to search the web, it'll do a Google search on the question you asked at the very beginning. So we're still using this block here. So we're going to do a Google search on our question. It's going to get the result, it's going to summarize it, and it's going to tell us whatever Google has to say about the subject. And it's going to give us another option. Do we still have more questions, or do we just want to end it? If we want to end it, it'll save the output, but if we have more questions, it'll auto-generate an email for us. It'll send the email. It'll save the fact that we sent the email, and then it will end. So if you're just looking at this, it looks very, very complicated. There's a lot of different steps, a lot of different things that can happen. But I hope that after this video, you'll be able to know what each block does, how each block operates, and how they interact with each other. So now let's demonstrate what this model is capable of. So if we're going to test this out, we can go up here to preview. And I like to do this open draft agent. You can do open published if you want, but I just prefer the draft. So we're going to enter our name. We're going to enter today's date. And we're going to ask a question. We're going to hit next. And it's going to tell us what is going on here. So right now it decided that we're going to summarize our notes. It realized that I'm asking a class topic. It's going to pull from our live class notes, and it's going to summarize everything. That's a pretty good explanation of what an LLM is. But let's just say I'm not satisfied with this yet, so I need more help. We're going to click yes. It's going to do a search result on Google. Once it gets the search result, it's going to summarize it, and it's going to tell us what Google has to say about LLMs. That's a pretty good response, but I'm still not satisfied with it. So I'm going to ask the TA to help me out with this topic. So now it's going to generate an email. It's going to update our Google Doc, and I'll go here, and boom, look at that. We just had AI edit a Google document for us. And each subsequent updates will just be lower on the page. So here's the email that was sent. Dear teaching assistant, I hope this email finds you well. Very good email. I would respond to this if I got that. Once you're done, you can just exit out. Now let's try a new feature here. Let's preview it again. Let's tell it our name, enter today's date, and let's say, what are my next assignments that are due? Let's learn how to spell first. So it's using the logic block, and it thought to go here. Now it's pulling from our due dates document, and as you can see here, I have less than a day left to do this assignment. I have 2 days left to do this assignment, and I have 7 days to do this assignment here. So now we know what's due and how long we have left to do it. We're going to hit next. I'm going to go here to our document and see it's already updated. I'll try and run this one more time to see this live document be updated. So let's see, we've gone this route, we've gone this route. Let's ask it what the best LLMs are. So we're going to open up our draft again. Today's date. What questions do you have about your AI class? What are the best models? So now I'm going to be on this page, and once the model is done doing its thing, it's going to scrape that one website for what it has to say. It's going to do a basic Google search. It's going to compile all of those results. Claude is going to summarize it all for me. And in a couple seconds here, we are going to see this be updated. Okay, I forgot to mention that once our result comes from Claude, we're going to have to click next to activate the log update. And there you go. Our new log update is here. Now we can ask the model all about this. It'll pull this data from this document, and we'll be able to learn more about our past usage. Now, this example is, I chose to do an in-class helper bot just as a demonstration. Whether or not this has any actual use to you, I don't know. I hope it does. But I really designed this whole thing just to show you how each block works. So if your project is inventory management, you can now use all these tools here that I've given you to create an agent that will help you manage inventory. Maybe you could put in your product name. Maybe you can put in the quantity that's already there. Maybe you can put in your desired quantity, and maybe you can create some functions and do some blocks that will determine when you should order, how many you should order, etc. If your project is something with health planning and nutrition, you can have the user input what they ate today, and it can do a Google search on how many calories that is, and it can update a Google spreadsheet. Not only does it do Google Documents, but you can update Google spreadsheets as well. So really just tailor these tools that I've given you to your class project, and you'll be able to hopefully have a lot of fun doing this. I think you'll realize the power that AI has, and if you use these tools correctly, then you'll do great on your class project. and you'll walk away with some real-life valuable skills that you can take with you into your next job. If you have any more questions on this, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to go into depth into all of this and maybe cover some of the more functionalities. Just for your reference, this whole section here are all of your options. You can go to Slack, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Hunter.io, which is a new email service that's just coming out. Here's all the Google stuff you can search: Sheets, Docs, News, Trends, email. You can do social media, and then you can generate voice, you can generate audio, you can generate text and charts and images. You can do all this cool stuff. And if you know the basics, which I've covered today, then this will be a breeze. You'll be able to use all these tools to your advantage. But if you need more help, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll be happy to answer all of your questions and walk you through how to do it.